everyone, this is Prem again. In this video, which we recorded at Hayes Bank Paddington on our monthly meet, we are going to discuss with Nish from Olsam. Olsam is one of the companies which is an aggregator of mainly Amazon e-commerce brands, but also they are into any other channels as well, but their focus is on Amazon. Nish is going to share a lot about what is all this aggregator economy which is cropping up right now, what are the assumptions that others make about the aggregator companies and how they are right or not right. He's going to go deeper into how they are operating as a company and why we should consider looking for an exit, partnering with an aggregator company. So there's a lot to hear from him. Go take a look and leave your comment below. Thank you.
Yes, a quick intro to myself. So I work at Olsam with Sam at the back there, who's one of our co-founders. So basically, we buy e-commerce businesses, mostly Amazon businesses. We take them in-house, scale them up, and I head up the business development and marketing functions at Olsam. And so we were founded towards the end of 2020, and I joined in May last year. So coming almost a year that I've been there now. And then prior to Olsam, I worked at Amazon. So I was there for close to 4.5 years. I started off in the FBA team, fulfillment for Amazon. Worked in London, but across the EU business. Then I moved on to the Seller Fulfill Prime team. So as part of the team that set up Seller Fulfill Prime in the UK in 2017. And then moved back to the FBA team in 2020 to bring in all the policy restrictions and FBA restock limits, which everybody loves. So yeah, that's some of the things I worked on there, and I left beginning of last year. So yeah, it's a bit of an intro to me.
So I'm not going to go deeper into the aggregator first. Let's not go to the house. Let's go to the why now. Why did you leave the job in Amazon and go to Olsam? Not just Olsam, but you have plugged yourself into an industry which looks very interesting. Yeah. Why did you make the move?
So firstly, I wasn't actually looking to leave Amazon. I actually really loved it there. I think it was a mixture of things, right? So first is the aggregator space, because I was working in Amazon and working in Amazon Marketplace. I was aware of the space growing up. I'd heard of some of the larger aggregators, some of the fundraisers, and then it was starting to come into Europe. And so I became aware of some of the fundraisers happening. So it was a space that I was really interested in because it's a growth space in e-commerce. E-commerce is growing anyway, but within that, this was like this subsector that was just growing super, super fast. So I wanted to be part of that. And you sort of had to leave Amazon to do that. So that was one. Two, just personally, like my background is, I studied economics at university. And then straight after that, I did a few internships and things at banks and investment banking and investment. And didn't enjoy that, so I wanted to try something completely different and go to Amazon. But this actually brought both of those experiences together, right? So it's working in the e-commerce space at Amazon plus the investment side, and I never knew that those two would actually come together, but it sort of did. And then lastly, I always actually wanted to work at a startup, and this was like a perfect opportunity to work at a startup, but then combine some of my interests, and also got to follow Sam as well. So we didn't actually work directly together at Amazon, but we worked in the same division at the same time. So it was a mixture of a few things.
That's nice. I didn't know about the investment background that you had.
Yeah, I mean, there was short-term internships. So I mean, I was looking to go down that route when I was at university. Then I did a few of the internships, and to be honest, hated it. And so I wanted to do something completely different, work actually in a business, building something up rather than advising. And then, I loved it. I did that for almost 4.5 years. And then this opportunity came up, which was combining everything.
That's nice. You joined Olsam now. So I'm sure it's in the early days of Olsam that you joined them. It's been a couple of years that Olsam started.
Yeah, so Olsam was founded towards the end of about Q3 2020. And then I joined May 2021. So it was still been around for a few months. But then it's accelerated throughout last year, and this year is going to be.
How's the portfolio looking like right now?
So probably I can't go into details of the number of deals that we businesses that we've acquired, but overall, I think I can just see throughout last year and into this year, we're really building out our niches in different categories. So when you start off buying businesses, you're just looking for good, well-run businesses that have good review modes, good types of products. But then as you start to buy a few businesses, you start to develop your niche. So we've got quite a few businesses in sports and outdoors. We've got quite a few in sort of the health and wellness space, pets, and we're starting to build out our expertise in each of those. And the great thing is, once you have a few in one space, you start to get to know the manufacturers in that space. You start to know what kind of products are going to be selling there. And so you just actually become better at running a brand new business in that category. So yeah, we've announced a few last year and this year. I think probably the most significant one that we announced was we acquired another aggregator. So that was the first in the whole aggregator space. The first time one aggregator has acquired another one. So it was a business called the aggregator was called Flywheel Commerce, and they had they had a few businesses. And they were US based, and we acquired them towards the end of last year.
Okay, I think Olsam positioned yourself as more of an EU-based aggregator. I think the marketing also came across very proud about that factor, and this is a US-based aggregator that you went through.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're based in London, and most of the people at Olsam work in the UK as well, only mostly in London. A lot of our experience is launching businesses in the UK and expanding them into Europe and making them successful in the different European marketplaces. But the US market is massive, and so we do have people at Olsam who've launched businesses in the UK and then take them into the US. So we're kind of uniquely placed compared to some of the US acquirers because the market's so massive in the US that often they don't need to come out of the US, at least initially. So we've got good experience with both. We can say to US businesses, we've got the expertise in launching in France and Italy and places that they probably wouldn't consider because the biggest marketplaces, the Amazon ones anyway, are US, UK, and Germany. So outside of those, you wouldn't typically see a lot of US-based sellers or sellers even outside of the US, like aiming at those kind of marketplaces.
Do you have any examples of any brands? I don't need to disclose the brand, but you can at least tell the story behind that.
Yeah.
Any examples that you acquired and doubled or tripled the sales revenue? What I'm more interested in there is what is the magic plan that roll-up companies like yours have, which can increase the sales revenue? I'm struggling here as a sole entrepreneur trying to build my own brand, double or triple the sales revenue visually. What's that magic plan? Give me an example as well.
I think it's not the best answer, but there isn't just one thing. Otherwise, everybody would be doing it, right? I think firstly, it's probably helpful for me to discuss a little bit about the types of businesses that we look at. So typically, we're going to be looking at businesses that are already quite good. They're well-run businesses because we like businesses that have highly ranked products with a good review mode. They've got some history. They're not brand new products. They've been around for a couple of years. They're ranked well in their categories. So in order to even get to that stage, you need to be quite a well-run business. You're not just accidentally going to get there. So the founders of these businesses are doing a good job already. So it's not usually one thing that we do that is going to grow this business massively. It's usually a combination of things. I think often when we speak to founders of businesses, they have been running the business for a couple of years and they've got to a natural ceiling point. So if it's just them on their own, or they founded it with a significant other, typically they'll get to a revenue often around $1 million or just under a year, and they, in order to get to the next level, they need to recruit more people, or they need to spend more on advertising than they are at the moment, or they need to. Sometimes we come across businesses where they're not even using 3PL, so they're bringing products in from China into their own house and then shipping that into an FBA FC. Which isn't sustainable if you're scaling. So those are usually the sorts of things that we come across that we can change. So we have the sort of investment team, which I sit in. We find these businesses, speak with the founders directly, and then go through the process of acquiring the business. But then we've got this massive sort of operations team, which is way bigger than the investment team. So we've got our own brand management team. They look after the P&Ls of each of the businesses. We've got our own supply chain team, we've got our own copywriting team, advertising team. So when you start to think about all of that, you realize how much scale, not just us, but any other aggregator has compared to a couple of people running their own business. So that's where we come in. And to answer your first question, an example. So we've got quite a few businesses in our portfolio, but probably one that stands out is a business called Peak Coffee. So a bit of background on them. They sell coffee pod holders. So there's a lot of Nespresso coffee pods you can put in your machine at home. So they sell holders for those. Which initially I thought this is super niche, right? but it's grown so massively. So we acquired that beginning of 2021. And we've more than doubled its sales. Initially, they were selling their products just in the UK, and I think they had 1 or 2 SKUs in the US. And then we launched new products and existing products in the US in Q3 last year. And now roughly 30% of all their sales are coming from the US. Not just that, like we did a few other things, right? So we completely refreshed the brand. Refreshed the listing. We created a brand identity because what we noticed was it was highly ranked. It was number 2 when we acquired it. But a lot of the competitors, they were sort of poorer quality than this one. So that wasn't reflected in the brand itself. So we wanted to change the brand identity to reflect the quality of the product and market it as a higher quality product. And I think that's one of the things that's made it do really well in the US. But that sort of thing doesn't happen easily. You've got to build up that expertise, which goes back to what I was saying earlier about once you increase your knowledge in certain niches, for example, pets or like a specific part of home and the kitchen, then you start to understand what are the things that are going to make it successful to sell in that particular niche.
Nice. What happened to the Peak Coffee? Did you say? To the founder of the company, is he like, wow, like this an opportunity? Is that his mentality now?
No. So he's just like super nice guy. His name's Lynn. So he's actually a former police officer, and he he actually like works with us still quite a lot. Like he's going to be coming to potentially coming to some events with us. I think he'd been running the business for a few years, and it's the same with a lot of founders. You get to a point where you're either running it for so long, you need more investment to get to the next step, or you're just sort of burned out and you just want to exit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's sort of where he is.
That's nice. I would like to invite him sometime as well.
I think you'd love to.
Yeah, cool. And hearing about this, roll-up is not a new thing at all. It has existed in the offline industry as well.
Yeah.
I can take an example like Unilever, which has combined pretty much everything in the world into under one brand, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing new, but investors are really interested into the e-commerce, and also I see that they are more interested into the micro brands.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's the trend shift here? Why do you think it's happening?
I think the biggest trend shift is the shift of consumers to move to e-commerce. So I think in 2020, I can't remember the figure exactly, but the US e-commerce sales, UK e-commerce sales, both grew roughly the same. I think it was just under 50% year on year. And also that was driven a lot by pandemic and people at home the whole time. But that basically just accelerated the change of behavior of people anyway. Like we all know this. We all shop online. Pretty much all of us shop on Amazon. So that was part of it. And that incredible growth meant that the number of products being bought, the gross merchandise sales of products being bought on the internet was increasing versus what we saw on retail. So that's like that kind of growth. Like all investors are going to be interested in that. And the focus on micro brands, I think it comes down to branding. Like I think the way that people buy, it's not just on Amazon. You're seeing people buy products on Instagram, on TikTok, across all these different marketplaces. And the thing that sets these products, the best-selling products apart, is that they have a brand. And I've noticed that difference on Amazon as well. When I first joined Amazon, you didn't get a lot of branded products. If you wanted to go out and buy good brands, you went to John Lewis or something, like some of these retailers. And on Amazon, you got a lot of resellers. Now that's shifted towards people with brands, And I think that's going to shift probably like a few years from now. We will be going on Amazon to buy well-known brands that are being built today. So I think that's the big shift that's happening, which is why everybody's so interested in acquiring micro brands, because some of these could be the biggest brands of tomorrow. I think we're just in the middle of that curve. But still, even now, if I want to go and buy a name brand, I'll probably look it up on Amazon, but it wouldn't be my go-to to go and buy it. I'd probably go to their own website possibly. Well, I think that's changing, and that's sort of what we're trying to do.
It's the consumer shift of mentality which is driving investor shift of mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice. So we talked about investors and customers here, but talking about the sellers themselves, do you think there is a shift of mentality towards exiting through acquisition by roller companies against trying to raise funds from VCs or crowdfunding or any source that they can raise funds? So that's one way of growing. The other way of growing their brand is to give it to a roller company like Aggregators. Do you think there's a shift of mentality there in your experience?
In short, yes. You've got to remember that most sellers on Amazon, not just Amazon, but off Amazon as well on different channels, before 2 years ago, never really even had the opportunity to sell their business, exit their business. So this is the first time, and remember when FBA has been around for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. It's been around for a while. So for people to actually exit their business is the first opportunity they've ever had. So naturally, you're going to have more people looking to sell their business to roll-ups or aggregators like ourselves. I think there's the other thing around, and I think sellers are learning this more and more now, is around the operational side. So whenever we, or even like larger firms will buy out a business, they will insert clauses called earn-outs. So if the business has grown to a certain amount, then the founder, even though they don't own the business anymore, will gain some of that uplift, some of that upside. So when you're looking to sell a business to somebody and you've got earn-out clauses in the contract, you want to sell to somebody who's actually if you feel confident is going to run that business well. And that's where the expertise of aggregators and roll-ups come in, because especially in our case, that we've run Amazon businesses before, not just on Amazon, but off Amazon as well, we're on Instagram, these sort of things. So there's a degree of confidence that we can run these businesses well. While private equity VC, they typically go for much larger scale businesses, so they might not have the expertise, at least now, to run these sort of micro brands in e-commerce. But I think over time, as the businesses get bigger that people acquire, I think private equity will get more interested, and we'll probably build up that expertise over time. But right now, I think the reason there's so much growth is that aggregators have that expertise. Not all of them, but some of them do.
That's nice. So we talked about the shift of mentality here. So the current e-com to retail ratio is roughly around 30%. And do you think the big people within the industry, where the people like Amazon, Shopify, or eBay, but now with aggregators, we can see a lot of players in the e-commerce. Do you think that will shift the whole industry and increase the ratio of e-commerce altogether?
E-commerce versus retail?
Yeah.
I think that's happening anyway, and that's driven by consumers. So it goes back to what we were saying before. So the trends that are being driven by consumers, customers buying more on the internet, means that people are going out and shopping less directly in shops in bricks and mortar stores, and that means and that is a self-fulfilling circle. I guess the answer is yes. The fact that aggregators are investing so much into e-commerce, that's ultimately the customers are going to benefit, because the business model of aggregators is that they go out and buy businesses in certain niches, build up their expertise there, reduce costs, because they can use the same manufacturer, they have economies of scale, so they can order units from the same manufacturers, which ultimately goes down to the consumer, because you're going to reduce costs for the end consumer. So I guess yes, but I think that's more driven by the trend we're seeing already, rather than the introduction of aggregators and roll-ups.
So it will be driven more by the consumer.
Yeah. It's all about the customer.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I see that the aggregators are elevating a lot of brands. I have seen many examples, like you said just now, coffee. I have seen one example where it is a plain bottle which transformed into a very neatly packed brand from there on because they went to an aggregator. So I have seen plenty of examples like that. I think that will also drive customers to e-commerce.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's a really good point because branding is something that's building a brand identity, and even something as simple as optimizing listings, getting translations right. A lot of these aren't done well at the moment. And then when you have that expertise, when you've got these massive teams that have done this several times before across different brands, it just means that it's quite relatively easy to do. And yeah, exactly what you're saying. It could be the same product, but like we found with Peak, that the product was great quality, but it wasn't necessarily being marketed in the way that we thought it should be. So we changed the brand identity, and that increased sales. So yeah, I definitely agree.
On the same lines, there are many aggregators in the market who actually recruit the founders of the brands as well. They get the founder as part of their team and work along with them towards improving the brand with economies of scale, right?
Yeah.
Does Olsam has any such examples, or are you planning to do something like that? Is it only the brand that you acquire?
No, we're super open to having families join as well.
Okay.
So I can't really mention names because we're still sort of in exclusivity with some, but there are some where we will hopefully be bringing on people who founded the business as well. Into Olsam. So no, it's never we want to just acquire the business, get rid of the people who used to work there. But if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who's selling a business, they've been running this business for 3-4 years. It's been a real slog for 3 or 4 years, and then you're going to get this, hopefully a nice payout. Typically, you want to take the payout, rest a bit, and then go out and start your new business, or do something completely different. So often it's the founders who want to go out on their own.
That's interesting. So talking more about Olsam now, what kind of brands or Olsam rather?
Do you mean categories or just the sort of brands that we've acquired already?
No. The kind of categories that you are always looking at.
Oh yeah. It's probably easier to talk about the categories that we don't look at because we will look at most categories of products. The ones that we wouldn't look at would be perishables, complex electronics, because we don't really have much experience of working with those, and also it's like fast, right? The technology changes very quickly. Some consumables products, alcohol, those sort of things we will look at. Typically the sorts of categories that we do look at: home and kitchen, baby, pets, health and wellness, sports and outdoors, which are when you're a customer, those are the sort of things you go to Amazon to buy. And as I said before, we're building out niches in some of those categories.
Just touching on the perishables and consumables, is there a particular reason why you do not look for buying those brands?
Yeah, so, firstly on the consumable side, and when I say consumables, I mean sort of supplements, that sort of thing. It's not that we would never buy a business that sells supplements. It's just that sometimes when you look to buy a business that's selling a certain type of supplement, and then you do the research to see what's inside the tablets or whatever, it doesn't necessarily match up with what it says on the tin, and you're messing around with people's health, and that's something that we would buy a business that sells supplements if we were very confident about the product. And I think it's just about finding the right business. So it's not something we definitely would never do. It's just it's not a big it's not a big focus for us. And then you asked the second question.
Perishables.
Oh yeah, perishables. Well, these just they go off, and so that's sort of the answer to that one.
Is it the manufacturing side that's your apprehension, or
For the
for the food and beverages sector?
I think it's probably a mixture of a few things. So you can't necessarily buy in bulk, and a lot of businesses we've come up with, we have spoken to businesses that sell perishables. They often have manufacturing in house, so that's something that we would need to look at if we were going to. Also, our experience in running businesses is in the categories that we've mentioned already. So I would never say never, but those are categories as well.
Not the focus.
Yeah.
Got you. So you recently received, Olsam recently received an investment of 170 million pounds, I think. So how much of this is allocated to, not exactly, but what percentage roughly is allocated to acquiring the new brands and improving your operations? How is this looking like?
So most of the money that we raised goes towards buying new brands. So you probably know this from if you've read any news about fundraisers, but usually when you raise money, it's a mixture of two things. You raise some in equity and some in debt, and the majority of the fundraisers, most of that is debt, and so it functions very similarly to a private equity firm when you go out and buy a business using that debt, and then you pay back the debt over time using the cash flows of the business. So the more debt that you have, the more that you can go out and spend on buying new businesses. So yeah, the majority of it is on buying new businesses.
That's clear. The most dreaded question for you, maybe the whole year, somebody asked you, many people ask you, but I'm going to ask it in a different angle. So if I am an aggregator, if I want to acquire a brand, what are the things that I need to look into that new business that I'm buying?
Yeah, I mean that is a different angle. That's a different angle to ask. I'd probably split it into two. I'd probably first split it into the products and the branding itself, and then maybe talk a little bit about your mindset as a founder or somebody trying to sell the business. So on the type of business itself, firstly on the financial side, most aggregators want to see like margins of at least 20%. Some will go below that, but that's usually the number that we've been seeing. And then on the revenue side, this varies between aggregators. For us, we typically don't look at anything below $1 million, $1 million, so slightly less than for pounds. We have acquired some businesses that are smaller than that, but we really need to like the business to do that, like the products. And I think most of the larger aggregators you will have heard of will be looking similar size as well. So that's on the financial side. On the types of products, I think it's very similar to what I said before about the categories that we look at. So you want the sort of product that's sort of an evergreen product. People are always going to want to buy it. In particular, in very specific categories, it's even better if it's in a growth category. So some examples, like baby products, for example, there's always going to be required. And we've noticed on Amazon as well, there's more and more baby products being put up on there. Pets as well over COVID. Lots of people got pets, and they're not going to get rid of them anytime soon. So that's a growth category. So those are the specific categories. On the products, we like products that have a competitive advantage. So it's not something that somebody can just waltz up and order off AliExpress, Alibaba, and bring in, but something that has like a patent, for example. That means that there's a high barrier to entry to selling that product. Also means that someone can't just rip you off. Like you can, they might be able to put it up on Amazon. I think we've all seen examples where people have done that, but then you can get them kicked off. So these are some examples on the types of products. On the mindset of the founder, I would say if you're looking to sell your business, there are a few things that you just need to know. Like one is really know your financials well. Get an accountant if you don't have one already. A lot of sellers, you're seeing more and more sellers get accountants now, but usually a lot of sellers don't have their own accountants. There are so many e-commerce accountants out there. So know your financials well, because any acquirer, if they're interested, they're going to ask you your financials. It's one of the first things they'll ask. Second is know your story and be very transparent. So don't be afraid of talking about you've had a bad year or last year, you've had a bad Q4, because that's going to come out in the financials anyway. Be transparent about it and talk about where you think the growth areas are going to be for your business. Because ultimately, it's your story that's going to, you're selling the business, but you're also selling the story to the acquirer. So if you can tell them, this is where I see the growth coming, that's really going to help them when they're going through their the investment committee or they're thinking about whether to acquire the business. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. But like I'd probably split it into a few different things: so financials, types of products, and then the mindset when you're trying to sell.
Fantastic. For the valuation, yes, again, one other dreaded question for you. I know how do you do the valuation? Is there a certain formula that you use, or is it depending on the brand position?
So usually valuations, this is what we ask for the financials. So when we ask for the financial, if you have an accountant, then you can just send that over to us, and it's based on your income statement. So we're P&L, profit and loss. So most valuations are done as a multiple of what's called SDE, which is seller's discretionary earnings. So you might have heard, the business was sold for a 4x multiple or 3.8x multiple. Basically, what that means is if your SDE is $200,000 and you sold it for a 4x multiple, then you sold it for $800,000. That's basically what it is. And usually the numbers that you hear, the 800,000, will often be a combination of the cash up front plus the earnouts that you're going to receive over time. So it might be that it's $550K up front, and then the other $250 is a combination of earnouts that are going to come over the next 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. And then just to zone in on SDE, that's so on your income statement, you start with revenue, then you got all your costs, operating costs, all of that. You go down to net income. What we do is we add back in expenses that aren't necessary for us to run the business. So, like example would be the salary of the founders, or like travel expenses or things like that. We would add those back in, and this is the income of the business x the sort of unnecessary costs, and then we value a business as a multiple of that.
You don't disclose the multiple.
It varies. I mean, I'm happy to go into it. So I think usually we see multiples sort of starting at sort of 3x all the way. Like we've seen some crazy ones, but the ones that are good deals end up getting acquired, 3x all the way up to like 6x. That's typically what you'll see. And then like private equity firms, they typically buy for a much higher multiple, which is why often you don't see private equity firms going in for these businesses. But as the scale increases and the SDE of businesses increases, then I think you'll start to see a lot more competition between aggregators like ourselves and private equity firms as well.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a scenario here. So there is a $1 million business that you can acquire.
Yep.
And there is another which is a $10 million brand. Taking either of these and scaling it up is going to take the same kind of effort from your company, right?
Depends, but yeah.
Depends again, but it's if you're talking about scaling up, it's kind of the same effort,
right?
Roughly. Why would you prefer to go and acquire the $1 million? Would there be any reason for going for the smaller brands? Because you said your focus is on the smaller brands with £1 million starting from there.
Starting. Yeah. So we, we would go for the 10 million one as well. It's not really good. But yeah, to answer your question, ideal world we'd go for both if they're both great businesses. But yeah, why would you go for a smaller business over a big one if like everything's equal? I guess So I guess it would come down to a few things. Usually, and I was saying it slightly tongue in cheek, but I do mean it. If they're both good businesses, we would go for both. The reason sometimes you would go for a smaller one, even if it is a lot of effort, is because if you see a lot of growth potential in that business. It is easier to grow. In theory, it's easier to grow a £1 million business by 50% than it is to grow a £10 million business. So if we see a lot of growth opportunity there, then yeah, we would definitely go for it. It also comes down to the things we were talking about before. So there's the niches that we have experience in. So if we find a business that's selling, it's the ideal kind of business, like low SKU count, like high revenue per SKU. It's in a niche that we really like, and we can really see how it fit well with the other brands that we have. That's ultimately what we're building. We're building the brands of the future. So if it really fits in well, at some point we will incorporate that into our overall brand, and then we grow. So that would be one reason. Usually it would be because we just really like the product, or that we can see that we can grow it a lot. I guess the other way of looking at it is, why would you not go for the £10 million or $10 million business? Usually, larger scale businesses like that come with more complications. Maybe 10 million is not the best number, but if it's 15, 20 million, they will have a mixture of different things. They won't just be typically doing FBA on Amazon. They will be off Amazon as well. They might have their own warehouse. They'll be on lots of different other marketplaces. And then it comes down to, and then they might have a team as well. And it's about, can we take all of that on at this point in time? So it might come down to that.
So your focus right now is only Amazon exclusive brands, or is it more than that?
So right now we wouldn't go out and buy a business that doesn't have any Amazon sales. They don't sell on Amazon at all. Most of the brands that we've bought so far, they have quite a high Amazon, quite high level of Amazon sales. So they will usually be at least 50% selling on FBA. 50% of the revenues will come from FBA. But then going forward, Amazon is not the be all and end all. It's not going to be where businesses aren't going to grow on there forever. There are so many new marketplaces coming out. There's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's Walmart, there's wholesale as well, so completely different things. So Amazon is where our experience is and where we're starting. It's also the biggest marketplace, but we will definitely go off it as well. And I'm sure there will be a point when we start acquiring B2C businesses that aren't just Amazon focused. Which is when we say we acquire e-commerce businesses, but we're starting off with Amazon.
Great. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the knock-on effects on the industry due to the aggregators and roll-up trend, I would say. So the threat number one is does the roll-up companies, the cash, the deep pocket that you have, means that you can spend a lot on marketing, doing advertisement and better branding, like you said. Is this going to affect the mom and pop sellers who's for a lot of them, Amazon gives them confidence and hope? Is this trend going to affect those kind of entry-level sellers?
Do you mean in terms of pricing? So because
in terms of
pricing,
in terms of competition itself.
Okay. So that's a really difficult one to answer, because increased competition and more people in the space, and ultimately cutting down pricing is probably going to affect sellers who don't have that economy of scale. They can't order thousands of products in one go, and they're just starting out. So probably in some ways yes, but also in some ways no. I don't think it's probably easiest it's ever been to be able to start a brand and sell not just on Amazon but anywhere. So, and then we've spoken before about how it's moving more and more towards brands now instead of just price. Customers are very price sensitive and time sensitive when they want their products, but the branding is so important, which is why something that you sell on Instagram, like a pair of trousers that you sell on Instagram for like £150, probably wouldn't sell well on Amazon, but it sells well on Instagram because the branding is so good. So I would say if you're just looking at the pricing and the financials, yeah, possibly yes. But overall on branding, I think everybody goes through the same struggles. And we're probably maybe a slight advantage because we own so many businesses that we learn to brand them all in different ways. So it's not like we're just starting out, but we go through the same struggles as well on how to define the brand identity of the product. So I'm not sure if that's the best answer, but yeah. So I think it's sort of yes and no. sitting on the fence.
Yeah, all right. So now that's the competition that the aggregators pose for the entry level or the small scales.
Yeah.
But there is competition among the aggregators themselves. There is a lot of aggregators coming in. It's like a lot of them.
Yeah.
Just in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And there is more coming up as well. I'm seeing a whole ecosystem building here, but there is a lot of competition and tension between these in acquiring the brands and also in competing in the marketplace. Do you see this can end up in bankrupting each other? Or what is Olsam's plan? I'm sure you have seen this and you're planning for this.
Firstly, you're right. There are a lot of aggregators or companies similar to us who are going out and buying businesses, e-commerce businesses, oftentimes similar to us in Amazon, but not Amazon as well. And yeah, you're right. It's almost like every other week you hear of a new fundraise. So yeah, there are lots. Bankrupting each other, I don't think so. So like if you do the maths right. So I think in 2020 Amazon's overall revenue was like 390 billion or something like that. Say it's 400 billion. They don't split out how much marketplace is versus all of it, but I read a few articles. The estimate is like 120 to 150 billion is what marketplace is. So let's say it's 150. Like of that, maybe like let's say be conservative, say like half of it is addressable. That's the sort of businesses you'd want to buy. So that's roughly 70 to 75 billion. I think the total that's been raised by aggregators is like just under 6 billion. So that's less than 10%. So I think there's still a lot to go. I don't think they're going to sort of bankrupt each other. I think there's still a lot of space left in the market. But they could bankrupt themselves. Yeah. So any successful acquirer of businesses, you need to firstly acquire a good business at a good price and then operate it very well. So if you buy a few businesses and don't operate them well, then it goes back to what I was saying right at the beginning. Like you can't pay back the debt on each of those businesses because your cash flows aren't there, and then the whole model starts to break down. And we have heard this happening with some other aggregators, and they're going out to get bridge financing. So yes, but that's not. I don't think that's due to the competition between aggregators. I think it's more because maybe they're acquiring businesses too fast or unable to run. So yeah, I think it could.
Nice. All right. So one last question to you. We know what 2022 is posing for you. Quite a lot. How is it looking beyond 2022 for Olsam? Big players.
Yeah. So firstly, like 2022 for us is all about growth. Right. So like 2021 was founded in 2020, but effectively 2021 was where we started to grow the business, build out the foundations, build out the team. This year is all about really doubling down on growth, acquiring more businesses, growing the team out even further. And a lot of the things we've built the foundations, but we want to make them our own. So there's a big focus on technology, all these different things internally. So I think 2022 is going to be a great year. Fingers crossed, unless you never know what's going to happen in the wider world. I think beyond, I think our ultimate goal is to really go into what I was saying earlier about build the biggest brands of tomorrow. So you talked about Unilever, P&G, all this before. I think they are massive conglomerates with lots of different brands within them. But I think the aggregator space is moving towards that within retail. So I think ultimately that's what we want to do. The best analogy I can think of is in fashion. So like fast fashion exists right now. So H&M, Zara, Shein in China, all of these businesses, they're able to see a trend, understand it really well, sometimes even predict it before people are going out to buy clothes. They can source manufacturers, make all these clothes and products, bring them into store and get them sold, sometimes within weeks. That's what fast fashion is. And that doesn't really exist at the moment for retail products. And I think that's what's the future, the future is moving towards. So because we've got so much experience of running these brands and we've got really good we're getting better on the supply chain side, like sourcing, all of that. I think we'll get to the point where we're able to hopefully predict what customers want to buy, or we see trends early on, and then bring them to market really quickly in a way that some of these larger businesses aren't able to do. So I don't know if that's going to be 2023, but that's the goal.
That's very visionary. I can see happening, definitely.
Yeah, and I don't see why. I think it's more difficult with something with these sort of products because they're ultimately the more takes more time to produce them and they're more expensive. But I can definitely see the market going that way, and we want to be right at the forefront of that. And our goal is to be Europe's next generation consumer goods company. That doesn't mean that that's just got to be defined in Europe. We want to do that worldwide. So that's our goal.
Good luck to you and your team. Nish, thanks for all the wisdom shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.